Hey guys. All right, so the last time we read, we're now in Act Two of Macbeth. The last time we read scenes one and two. The killing of Duncan actually happened. Macbeth was able to go through with it, although he grappled with some religious issues. The fact that he could not say amen when he was in the room with the guards, that really bothered him. Um, his conscience is already eating at him. We had another appearance of our motif of sleeplessness, this time a really big one. Macbeth says that he heard something said that he murdered sleep. We may be talking about his conscience, the lack of rest he will likely experience from here for the rest of his life, according to him. Again, we saw some exchanges between he and his wife. Lady Macbeth is ruthless with her tongue. She is constantly questioning his manhood, his ability, calling him an idiot. We know Macbeth went through with the murder, but he walked out of the room with the murder weapons in hand. And there's just a lot of stuff going on as far as that's concerned. So this plan does not seem to be working out as much as they or as well as they thought it would, right? The scene ended with the two of them going back to pretend like they were sleeping because someone is knocking on their door, and we need to understand or ask ourselves who's knocking at the door at no o'clock in the morning. Remember, the last time check we had was when Macbeth and Banquo were speaking, or I'm sorry, when Banquo and his son Fleance were speaking about the time, and we knew at that time it was after 12 o'clock, midnight. So presumably it's about, 2, 3 in the morning, and someone's knocking on their door, and neither of them has any idea who this might be. So where we're picking up today on scene three, we have a character here called the Porter. We will never see Porter again. And a porter, of course, is a doorman, somebody who mans a door. You have porters at hotels, etc. So in Macbeth's castle, there's someone whose job is to open the door. So this knocking has prompted the porter. Now, the porter's appearance in the play is for comic relief. So I need you to put that in your notes. It's for comic relief. Remember, this is a tragedy. And although here in 2021, you all are, you know, what's desensitized to any kind of trauma when it comes to movies or plays or books or images, because we've been inundated so much with that in our culture. But then, this play is very dark. The killing of a king would have been serious business. This concept of witches and the war scene at the beginning with Macbeth splitting somebody in half. This is dark stuff, right? So to give the audience a break from that, there would often be like a single part or something that was meant to shake things up, make them laugh. And this is not a foreign concept. We see this even in current movies. My students who like horror films, many of them say, oh, I like it because it's funny, not even realizing that sometimes it's not, the parts they're laughing at is not funny, but other times there are comic elements included in horror films to break that up for the audience, because as much as we like reality, nobody just wants to, normal people, I would say, don't just want to see dark after dark after dark after dark. So the porter is here only to make us laugh, right? So there are some questionable parts in the porter's speech. I will not deal with them because this is a high school class, but for my more careful readers, you all can pay attention to that and kind of catch on to some of what he is saying in this portion. Okay, so here we're going to pick up on the porter. So if there are some parts that I skip and I don't explain, it's either one, I cannot translate literally, or two, I think it's a little bit inappropriate for me to explain, at least on video, to a high school class. So, all right, we're going to go ahead and get started.
Scene 3. Within Macbeth's castle near the gate. Enter a porter.
Here's a knocking indeed. If a man were porter of Hellgate, he should have old turning the key. Knock, knock, knock. Who's there? In the name of Beelzebub. Here's a farmer that hanged himself on the expectation of 20. Come in time.
All right, so you can tell by the actor's voice that the porter is drunk, right? This guy sounds drunk. And he's pretending as if he's in hell, which is kind of apt considering it's Macbeth's castle and we know what's going on there, right? So, he's pretending if a guy were a porter of hell, he should have old turning the key. He's going to be tired of turning the key to open the door into hell because in these dark times with so many people coming in and doing wrong in the world, they're going to be coming into hell, right? On your notes, you want to take note of another biblical reference to Beelzebub. Beelzebub is the devil. For those of you who are familiar with the Bible, you would have seen this word in the Bible. So this is what he's talking about here. And then the rest of what he's saying up until, we get to the next page are some people who are entering into hell's doors in his scenario. And this first one is a farmer. So that's what's happening.
Napkins enough about ya. Here, you'll sweat for it. Knock, knock. Who's there? The other devil's name. Faith. Here's an equivocator that could swear in both the scales against either scale, who committed treason enough for God's sake, yet could not equivocate to heaven. Oh, come in, equivocator. Knock, knock, knock. Who's there? Faith. Here's an English tailor come hither for stealing out of a French hose. Come in, tailor. Here you may roast your goose. Knock, knock. Never at quiet. What are you? But this place is too cold for hell. I'll devil porter it no further. I had thought to have let in some of all profession that go the primrose way to the everlasting bonfire.
The porter opens the door to Macduff and Lennox.
I pray you, remember the porter.
All right. So I know, again, I said it's supposed to be for comic relief. Many people, you may not laugh because, again, comedy is relative. And of course, this is not in our time frame. So you may not have found it funny, but supposedly it would have been funny for the audiences at the time. Now we have another character who's introduced to the play, Macduff. You most definitely need to add him to your character list. So we got another Mac, right? So you need to make sure that you keep track of those Macs as the names go, come in. And Lennox we have met before. Remember, Lennox was an attendant to the play. Macduff is a guard for Duncan. So remember when they told us that Duncan was supposed to be leaving the next day? Macduff is here to pick Duncan up. All right, so listen carefully.
Was it so late, friend, ere you went to bed, that you do lie so late?
Faith, sir, we were carousing to the second cock. And drink, sir, is a great provoker of three things.
What three things does drink especially provoke?
Marriage, sir, nose painting, sleep, and urine. Lechery, sir, it provokes and unprovokes. It provokes the desire, but it takes away the performance. Therefore, much drink may be said to be an equivocator with lechery. It makes him, and it mars him. It sets him on, and takes him off. It persuades him, and disheartens him. Makes him stand to, and not stand to. In conclusion, equivocates him in a sleep, and giving him the lie, leaves him.
I believe drink gave thee the lie last night.
That it did, sir, in the very throat on me. But I requite him for his lie, and I think being too strong for him, though he took up my leg sometime, yet I made a shift to cast him.
Okay, so again, that part right there, the little exchange, I will not be explaining for those of you who want to figure it out. You can figure it out. All right. So this is the part that becomes more relevant to what we need for class.
Ask him.
Enter Macbeth. Is thy master stirring? Our knocking is awaked him. Here he comes. Porter exits.
Good morrow, noble sir.
Good morrow both. Is the king stirring, worthy thane? Not yet. He did command me to call timely on him. I have almost slipped the hour.
All right, so Duff is addressing the porter when he says, "Is thy master stirring?" So he's asking about Macbeth because that's the porter's master. And Macbeth actually walks into the room at this point, and Macduff says, "Oh, our knocking has waked him. Here he comes." So Macbeth has come into the room, pretending as if the knocking has waken him up. So this is a good morning to both of them. And Macduff asks Macbeth, "Is the king awake? Is the king stirring, worthy thane?" And Macbeth says, "Not yet. It's not ready. He's not up yet." And Macduff lets us know he did command me to call timely on him. I have almost slipped the hour. So the king wanted me to come get him early, and I'm almost late, right? I almost slipped the hour. That's an interesting detail, right? Because what if Macduff had been there earlier? This scenario might have been totally different based on what we know about the Macduffs and their actions a few minutes ago.
I'll bring you to him. I know this is a joyful trouble to you, but yet 'tis one. The labor we delight in physics pain. This is the door. I'll make so bold to call, for 'tis my limited service. Macduff exits.
Goes the king hence then?
He does. He did appoint so.
Okay, so just to keep you up on what's going on, Macbeth lets him know, "I'll take him to you. I'll bring you to the king." And Macduff is like, "Okay, I know it's early in the morning. It's a lot of trouble, but we got to get this done." And Macbeth says, "This is the door. This is where the king is." But Macduff does not require Macbeth to go to the king's room with him, right? So that's an important detail. He says, "I'll make so bold to call, for it is my limited service." So he leaves to go get the king by himself without Macbeth by his side.
Oh, the night has been unruly. Where we lay, our chimneys were blown down, and as they say, lamentings heard in the air. Strange screams of death and prophesying with accents terrible of dire combustion and confused events new hatched to the woeful time. The obscure bird clamored the livelong night. Some say the earth was feverish and did shake.
'Twas a rough night.
My young remembrance cannot parallel a fellow to it.
All right, this is also an element that often pops up in Shakespeare's tragedies, right? So this is where our setting matches the events or the characters or something in the play. So Lennox is making small talk with Macbeth. "Oh, it's been an unruly night. Chimneys were blown down. I heard crying. There were strange screams of death, prophesying. All kinds of stuff was going on tonight. Birds were making all kind of noise. Some say the earth was feverish and did shake, suggesting an earthquake in some place." So Lennox is like, "I don't know what kind of night this was." And Macbeth's statement is almost an understatement. "It was a rough night," right? So we know Macbeth is talking about his actions, but Lennox is talking about things that are going on in the world, right, or around them. And they kind of parallel each other. And speaking of this word parallel, remember, it's like, when you think about a parallel in math, it's, side by side, something that looks the same. And we've talked about parallelism on several occasions in this text. So Lennox says, "My young remembrance cannot parallel a fellow to it." I've never seen a night that looks like this, right? And he's probably never seen it. Listen carefully.
Enter Macduff.
Horror! 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 Tongue nor heart can conceive nor name thee. What's the matter?
Confusion now hath made his masterpiece. Most sacrilegious murder hath broke ope the Lord's anointed temple and stole thence the life of the building.
What didst you say? The life? Mean you, his majesty?
Approach the chamber and destroy your sight with a new Gorgon. Do not bid me speak. See, and then speak yourselves.
Macbeth and Lennox exit.
Okay, so what is Macduff reflecting on? Right? He has gone into the king's room and he sees that the king has been killed. Oh, horror, horror, horror. Tongue nor heart can conceive nor name thee, right? And here goes Macbeth acting clueless. What's wrong? As if he doesn't know. Look at Macduff's wording, his choice of wording. Confusion now hath made his masterpiece. Most sacrilegious murder hath broke ope the Lord's anointed temple and stole thence the life of the building. Remember that loyalty to the kings? Again, like they treat them almost like gods. Here it is, Macduff is suggesting somebody has killed or broke open God's temple. That's how he's referring to Duncan, right? And so when he's suggesting murder, Lennox is like, mean you, his majesty, you talking about the king? All right, so Macduff says, approach the chamber and destroy your sight with a new Gorgon. You all know what a Gorgon is. What's a Gorgon? All right, there's the famous one that most people would know, that's Medusa, right? So this is a mythological illusion. You need to keep track of that in your notes, a mythological illusion. And what happens when you look at Medusa or any Gorgon? All right, so you turn into stone. So Macduff is suggesting he says, do not bid me speak. I don't want to speak about this. Go in there, see, and then speak for yourselves, because if you go look at this, you will destroy your sight with a new Gorgon. You're going to be frozen at this sight that you see, right? That's what he's comparing it to. And now, Macbeth and Lennox have exited, and Macduff is in Macbeth's castle in this section by himself, and Macduff is not having it. Look at his response.
Wait, bring me your alarm bell. Murder and treason. Banquo and Donalbain, now give away. Shake off this downy sleep, death's counterfeit, and look upon death itself. Up, and see the great doom's image.
All right, so here it is. This man, ring the alarm bell. Wake up. Y'all in here asleep. Get on up. Murder and treason is happening in this castle. Look who he calls first. Banquo first, before Donalbain and Malcolm, before the king's sons, right? But I know who's here. You all need to get up. Shake off this downy sleep, this soft sleep. It's death's counterfeit. You all are in the fake death. Come look at a real death. Look on death itself, right? Up and see what is going on in this castle. Macduff is like, okay, they in here, sleeping and comfortable, but I need people to wake up because my king is now dead and it's a problem.
Malcolm, Banquo, as from your graves rise up and walk like sprites to countenance this horror. Ring the bell.
Enter Lady Macbeth.
What's the business that such a hideous trumpet calls to parley the sleepers of the house? Speak!
O gentle lady, 'tis not for you to hear when I can speak. The repetition in a woman's ear would murder as it fell.
Our dramatic irony keeps popping up, especially in reference to Lady Macbeth. Oh, gentle lady. She is anything but gentle. Okay, Macduff, she is anything but gentle. He says to her, what has happened, I can't tell you, right? Because repetition in a woman's ear would murder as it fell. So a woman is not equipped to listen to what I have to say. Little does he know a woman is behind what you have witnessed, okay? So these gender roles, again, keep popping up. These gender roles where men don't expect that a woman can handle such news, all right? Listen carefully.
Enter Banquo.
Oh, Banquo, our royal master's murdered.
Oh, alas! What? In our house?
Too cruel anywhere. Dear Duff, I prithee contradict thyself and say it is not so.
Enter Macbeth, Lennox, and Ross.
Had I but died an hour before this chance, I had lived a blessed time. For from this instant there's nothing serious in mortality.
All is but toys. Renown and grace is dead. The wine of life is drawn, and the mere lees is left this vault to brag of.
All right, so let's look at what's going on here, right? So when Banquo enters, Macduff is immediately, listen, Banquo, our king is dead. And Lady Macbeth is hearing the news for the first time, quote unquote, right? So here she is with her fake, what? In our house? Like, I can't believe that. And then Banquo's like, too cruel anywhere. It doesn't matter that it happened in your house. Who in the world would kill the king? Who would kill Duncan, right? So he's telling Duff, please contradict yourself. Say it ain't so. You cannot mean that my king is dead. And then here comes Macbeth, right? So Macbeth seems to always be a little off on the plan. I want you to pick up on his language. Had I but died an hour before this chance, I had lived a blessed time. If I would have died an hour before experiencing this, my life would have been great, right? For from this instant, there's nothing serious in mortality. There's really nothing else to live for. Nothing else matters at this moment because my king is dead. All is but toys. Life is a game, a joke, right? Because renown and grace is dead. The wine of life is drawn, and the mere lees is left this vault to brag of. Like there's nothing left but the dregs at the bottom, right? So here it is. Macbeth, he might be overdoing it. What do you all think? Lady Macbeth did her little, what, in our house? And here comes Macbeth with this whole poetic speech. I don't know about you all, but I think he's, doing a little bit much. It doesn't seem like a natural reaction. Listen carefully.
Enter Malcolm and Donalbain.
What is amiss?
You are, and do not know it. The spring, the head, the fountain of your blood is stopped. The very source of it is stopped. Your royal father's murdered.
Oh, by whom? Those of his chamber, as it seemed, had done. Their hands and faces were all badged with blood. So were their daggers, which unwhite we found upon their pillows. They stared and were distracted. No man's life was to be trusted with them.
Okay, so here it is. Donalbain comes in. What's amiss? What's happening? What's wrong, right? And here comes Macbeth with all this poetry. You're amiss and you don't even know it. The spring, the head, the fountain of your blood is stopped. The very source of it is stopped, right? But Macduff is straight to the point. Your royal father's murdered, right? Which means it seems like Macbeth should have said something similar, right? He's overdoing it. He's just overdoing it. And Malcolm is like, oh my God, by whom? Who did it? So Lennox is reporting to us that it seems as if his guards did it. Those of his chambers, as it seemed, had done it because their hands and their faces were all badged with blood. So were their daggers, and we found them unwiped. This is a good detail. We found them unwiped under their pillows, right? And he says they stared and were distracted. This means these guards are looking confused because they have no idea what's going on. Why do we have blood on our hands? What's going on here, right? And Lennox says no man's life was to be trusted with them. Listen carefully and pay attention to this detail because we're going to return there.
And we yet have to repent me of my fury that I did kill them. Wherefore did you so?
Okay, so in this play, there's a time lapse right here. I never did really understand why this occurs, right? So if we rewind, we know that Macbeth and Lennox went to look at the king when Macduff was yelling out in the castle to wake everyone up, right? And Macbeth comes back and delivers this little speech or whatever about how he, if he had died an hour earlier, his life would have been great. So Lennox tells us, everybody in the room right here, that the two guards appear to have killed the king. Right here, Macbeth confesses and says, oh, yet I do repent me of my fury that I did kill them. So Macbeth is saying, I killed those guards. Now, when that happened, I don't know, right? If we had to make sense of it, in the midst, I don't know, because Lennox went to the room with him, but Macbeth killed the guards. And here it is, Macduff says, wherefore did you so? We talked about the word wherefore meaning why. Macduff says, why on earth would you do that? These are the two men that we had left. We got some questions. We may want to ask them what happened. What do you want to know or whatever? So Macbeth says, I'm sorry, in my anger, I do repent me of my fury that I did kill them. And Macduff is not feeling that. Like, you know, these are the people who supposedly killed the king. We need to ask them some things. But they are now not available for that conversation. Listen carefully.
And yet I do repent me of my fury that I did kill them. Wherefore did you so? Who can be wise, amazed, temperate and furious, loyal and neutral in a moment? No man! The expedition of my violent love outran the pause of reason. Here lay Duncan, his silver skin laced with his golden blood, and his gashed stabs looked like a breach in nature for ruin's wasteful entrance. They had the murderers, steeped in the colors of their trade, their daggers unmannerly breached with gore. Who could refrain that had a heart to love, and in that heart courage to make love known?
All right. So, oh my God, here comes Macbeth, full of crap, right? His claim here is that, my emotions got the best of me. Who can you expect to be wise, smart, amazed, temperate? Like remember we talked about this word temperate before, you know, your level, and furious, loyal and neutral in a moment. I went in and I saw this. How can I possibly be expected to deal with all my emotions at once? I can't. I'm only human, right? The expedition of my violent love outran the pause of reason. I loved him so much that I had no time to reason my actions. And then again, back to this explanation of Duncan. Here lay Duncan, his silver skin laced with his golden blood. He's describing him, you know, like some kind of otherworldly creature, this beautiful thing, right? And his gashed stabs look like a breach in nature. This man had all these stabs on him that it didn't look natural, right? And then I saw the murderers. They were steeped in the colors of their trade. They had blood all over them. Their daggers unmannerly breached with gore, right? So I keep bringing this up because if these guards are good enough to be the king's chamberlains, to guard the king, I would think that these men got some kind of sense or some ability. Who in their right mind would commit a murder and not clean the daggers, would just leave the murder weapons right there in plain sight for people to find, etc. So they keep talking about how their daggers were just bloody. These things would bring up questions, right? They would bring up questions, but Macbeth has gotten very bold. For the man a few minutes ago who said he would never walk back in this room, he has now walked back in this room and committed 2 more murders. So now he has 3 bodies on him that have nothing to do with the bodies that he did and had in war. He has now killed 3 people, right? And then look at Lady Macbeth's reaction.
Help me, Hans.
Look to the lady.
All right. Lady Macbeth has fainted. She has fainted. Now there's a question. Is this faint real or is this fake? So Macbeth has just confessed to committing 2 more murders, to killing the Chamberlain, and that takes her out. Now, I don't know if that's a real reaction, which it could possibly be, because they didn't plan to do that. This is out of the plan. They had this thing all airtight. And here it is. He done went and killed 2 people, and Lady Macbeth is like, oh, Lord, this man done messed us up. Or is this fake because it's a distraction? Maybe she's saying, this stupid idiot, why would he say this? Let me take the attention away from him so we can move on and let them think about something else, right? So she just fainted right here. And I need to know, what do you think? Do you think this is real or do you think this is a fake faint, all right? And then we come to Malcolm and Donald Bain, and they're on an aside. Remember our sides. So everybody else in this room, but nobody can hear these 2, because now these 2 are the ones who have something at stake. These are the king's sons. Listen carefully.
Why do we hold our tongues that most may claim this argument for ours? What should be spoken here, where our fate hid in an auger hole may rush and seize us? Let's away. Our tears are not yet borrowed, nor our strong sorrow on the foot of motion.
All right, the boys are very smart, right? Donald Bain, especially, Malcolm is the oldest and Donald Bain is the youngest, but Malcolm says, why do we hold our tongues? Why aren't we saying anything? That most may claim this argument for ours. We should be the one making the most noise because it's our dad who's dead, right? So why are we quiet? And Donald Bain says, what should be spoken here? Where our fate lies in an auger hole and may rush to seize us. Donald Bain said, I don't want to say too much in here. If somebody has killed our daddy up in here, we might be next. So we don't want to talk here. Let's away. We need to leave. He says, our tears are not yet brewed. We haven't even had time to cry because our safety is clearly at stake. We thought we were amongst friends, but somebody here clearly has it out for our family. So we don't need to talk here. We need to go somewhere. We need to get away, right? Listen carefully.
Look to the lady.
Lady Macbeth is assisted to leave.
And when we have our naked frailties hid that suffer in exposure, let us meet and question this most bloody piece of work to know it further. Fears and scruples shake us. In the great hand of God I stand, and thence against the undivulged pretense I fight of treasonous malice.
And so do I.
So all.
Let's briefly put on manly readiness and meet in the hall together.
Well contented.
All but Malcolm and Donald Bain exit.
All right, so here it is. Lady Macbeth still taking some attention away. And Banquo says, look to the lady. I need to go help her out, right? So now Banquo is saying, listen, something has happened here. We need to meet and question this most bloody piece of work to know it further, right? Fears and scruples shake us. We're afraid. We don't know who's amongst us. But Banquo is clear. In the great hand of God I stand, right? And thence against the undivulged pretense, I fight of treasonous malice. I know that my king was appointed by God. And since I'm in the hand of God, I got to make sure this is righted, right? And Macduff is right by his side, and so do I. And everybody else who's there says, so all. And here goes Macbeth. Let's briefly put on manly readiness and meet in the hall together, right? Manly readiness, this concept of men coming together to solve this problem. But somebody's not being very manly, in this situation. Listen carefully.
What will you do? Let's not consort with them. To show an unfelt sorrow is an office which the false man does easy. Isle to England,
To Ireland, aye. Our separated fortune shall keep us both the safer. Where we are, there's daggers and men's smiles. The near in blood, the nearer bloody.
Very prophetic words, right? So Malcolm is like, what will you do? We're not going to consort with them. This meeting that they're having, we will not be there, right? To show an unfelt sorrow is an office which the false man does easy. Somebody in that room fake. And, and whoever's fake, they could lie and pretend like they're sorrowful, but they're truly not, right? So Malcolm says, I'm going to England. Donald Bain responds that he's going to Ireland because their separated fortune shall keep us both the safer. If somebody finds us, they don't get to kill both heirs at once. We need to be in different places to protect our bloodline, right? And he says, where we are, there's daggers and men's smiles. The nearer in blood, the nearer bloody. These people are close to us. And the closer they are in blood, the more bloody they may be, right? So we need to get away from here. There's daggers in men's smiles.
this murderous shaft that shot have not yet lighted, and our safest way is to avoid the aim. Therefore to horse, and let us not be dainty of leave-taking, but shift away. There's warrant in that theft which steals itself when there's no mercy left.
They exit.
All right, so the boys are leaving, right? All right, scene 4 is our last scene, and then we'll be done with Act 2. Listen carefully.
Scene 4. Outside Macbeth's castle. Enter Ross with an old man.
70 I can remember well, within the volume of which time I have seen hours dreadful and things strange. But this sore night hath trifled for knowing.
All right, so this conversation kind of mirrors Ross's conversation from earlier. about the strange night, or Lennox, I think it was, who came in with Macduff about the night being strange. So we have an old man here, and we talk about a score. A score is 20 years. So the old man says 70 I can remember well. 70 years ago. So this is an old guy, right? 70 years he can remember well. And out of all this life that I live, I have never seen a night that looks like this. Nothing in comparison to the night that I've seen, right? Listen carefully.
Ah, good father, thou seest the heavens as troubled with man's act threaten his bloody stage. By the clock 'tis day, and yet dark night strangles the traveling land. Is night's predominance or the day's shame that darkness does the face of earth entomb when living light should kiss it?
All right, so here they're again talking about the day. Ross says, you see the heavens, they're troubled with man's act. They threaten his bloody stage. By the clock is daytime, so it should be day, but dark night strangles the traveling lamp. What will the traveling lamp be? Of course, this is a metaphor for the sun. So what is it, when is it that the sun will be strangled by the darkness, right? It seems to suggest some maybe an eclipse is happening, because he says, again, by the clock it's day, and yet dark night strangles the traveling lamp. There's an unnatural darkness that's going on when it should be light outside.
It's unnatural, even like the deed that's done. On Tuesday last, a falcon towering in her private place was by a mousing owl hawked at and killed.
Okay, so the old man is now giving us another scenario. It is unnatural, even like this deed that I saw, right? Last Tuesday, there was a falcon, who was a bird of prey, towering in her pride of place, right? And was by a mousing owl hawked at and killed. An owl is not capable of killing a falcon. All right, so this is a metaphor. And I'm going to let you determine in this scenario who's the falcon and who's the owl, because this is a scenario for our main characters, right? Listen carefully.
And Duncan's horses, a thing most strange and certain, beauteous and swift, the minions of their race, turned wild in nature, broke their stalls, flung out, contending against obedience as they would make war with mankind.
Okay, and listen, now this is odd. It says Duncan horses, who are normally beautiful and swift, and it says the minions of their race. There's this word minion again, right? Now on the side, the book says best or favors, but we've talked about the connotation of the word minion. And it says these horses were the minions of their race, and they turned wild in nature. They broke their stalls, flung out. They weren't obedient as they would normally be. And then they started to make war with mankind. Now, I've read several versions of Macbeth and I see different interpretations, but if we're talking this parallelism of words with, what was it? Valor's minion. And then here mentioning of a minion who is normally beauteous and swift and good and suddenly turned wild and started making war with mankind. I don't know. This seems to be that this may be another Macbeth reference. You all can tell me what you think about that, right? Listen carefully.
It said they eat each other.
They did so. To the amazement of my eyes that looked upon it. Enter Macduff. Here comes the good Macduff. How goes the world, sir, now? Why, see you not?
All right. Now, again, this is strange. They say the horses ate each other. Now, I don't know where that goes, but that's what they're saying, right? The horses ate each other. And the Rosses said that they did. I saw it. I looked, I saw that, right? And now Macduff enters the scene where Ross and this old man are. And Ross asked him, hey, Macduff, how's the world going? What's going on in the world? And Macduff says, why, can't you see? And this actor picked up the tone very well, because Macduff right now is salty. Macduff is not feeling the death of his king. Listen.
Not? Is none who did this more than bloody deed? Those that Macbeth had slain. Alas, the day. What good could they pretend? They were suborned. Malcolm and Donalbain, the king's two sons, were stolen away and fled. which puts upon them suspicion of the deed. Against nature still, thriftless ambition that will raven up thine own life's means. And 'tis most like the sovereignty will fall upon Macbeth.
All right, this is a very telling conversation that you need to pay attention to, right? So Ross asks, is it known who did this more than bloody deed? Do you all know who killed the king? Macduff says, those that Macbeth has slain. Clearly the guards, right? But Ross has a question. Alas today, what good could they pretend? Why would these guards suddenly want to kill Duncan? What are they going to get out of it? So now there's motive in the play that nobody ever questioned before, right? But Ross is saying that doesn't make sense. Presumably, if you're trusted enough to be next to the king, you've been vetted before to some degree, and suddenly, why would you just want to kill the king? What are you going to gain from that? So Ross is like, that don't really make sense. Now Macduff has an answer. He's suggesting they were hired. They were suborned. Malcolm and Donald Bain, the king's two sons, are stolen away and fled, which puts upon them the suspicion of the deed. Now, in the terms of dramatic irony, we know why the boys left. But here it appears that they left because the two of them wanted their father dead. That's the indication. Because they fled, people are suggesting that they're guilty. But Ross still not buying. He says against nature still, that still doesn't make sense. Thriftless ambition that will raven up thine own lives means. You are the princess. Your father has, the keys to the kingdom, literally. What benefits does a king have that the princess don't get? Most of them revel in being a prince. You get to live a royal life without the responsibility that the king has. So why in the world would you kill your father and mess up your lives means, right? So as a result of there being no heirs to the throne, Macbeth's position as Thane of Carter clearly makes him next in line, because Ross says then it is most like that the sovereignty will fall upon Macbeth, right? So that sovereignty is the kingship, that Macbeth is next in line with no heirs and Macbeth will be king. Listen carefully.
He is already named and gone to Scone to the investment. Where is Duncan's body?
All right. So Macduff says, yes, this is true. So he is already named as king and gone to a place called Scone for his coronation to be invested as king. And Ross is like, where's Duncan's body? This is, again, the shade. The shade in this play is very heavy. Have they even buried this man? Did Macbeth even give it time? Like, where's the body? We can't even put it to rest before he becomes king. So Macbeth wasted no time in taking on that title. So they're not even trying to investigation, nothing. Macbeth is in line to be king. Listen carefully.
Carried to Colney Kill, the sacred storehouse of his predecessors and guardian of their bones. Will you to Scone? No, cousin, I'll to Fife. Well, I will thither. Well, may you see things well done there. Adieu, lest our old robes sit easier than our new. Farewell, father.
God's benison go with you and with those that would make good of bad and friends of foes.
All exit.
All right, so Macduff literally answers the question, where's the king's body? And Ross asks, will you go to Scone? Are you going to go to Macbeth's coronation? And Macduff says, no, I'm not going. This is a sign of disrespect. The level of respect that comes to whoever's on the throne is supposed to be awarded to whoever's on the throne. And Macduff, who was very close to Duncan, clearly is deliberately not going to this coronation. I'm going to Fife, whatever. And Ross says, well, I'm going because I want to see what's going on. Ross a little messy, right? Well, I will thither. All right. And Macduff is like, I hope you see things done well. And then here goes our clothing motif again popping up. Adieu, unless our old robes sit easier than our new, right? He's comparing now Duncan and Macbeth, even though Macbeth is not quite yet settled into this role. All right. And this is it for scene 4 as well as act 2. Thank you guys. Make sure you keep up with your notes, and so you'll be able to do any upcoming assignments. See you all later.